All right, happy Monday and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for March the 3rd, 2025. And welcome to the month of March, 3/3/25 on your monitor or in your journal, the 62nd day of the year and the 9th Monday. Hope you had a fantastic and safe weekend doing whatever it is you like to do on the weekends, which go by way, way too quick. Today is National Canadian Bacon Day here in the United States, which is a bit odd because Canadian bacon is Canadian from Canada, which is now preparing, along with Mexico, for President Trump's tariffs to take effect tomorrow. The administration indicating over the weekend that the tariffs will go live on Tuesday, but may not be at 25%. Tomorrow, President Trump is also scheduled to deliver his first official primetime address to the nation as the 47th president. Newsmax will have pre- and post coverage, of course, and the Democrat response. After going home to Palm Beach over the weekend, President Trump arrived back at the White House last night. And there was if you want to call it a scare, a little bit of a wild moment. The North American Aerospace Defense Command sent up jets on Saturday when 3 civilian planes flew over Mar-a-Lago. Ever since Trump took office again, there's a temporary flight restriction over the resort whenever he's there. The problem is Mar-a-Lago is pretty much in the direct flight path of Palm Beach International Airport, which, by the way, is where Air Force One is kept or docked while Trump is home. If you live in South Florida and you haven't driven by Palm Beach International Airport to see Air Force One there, it's pretty awesome because the road is really close to the runway or not the runway, but where they keep all the planes. So Air Force One is pretty close to the road when you drive by. You can get a really good view of it. It is pretty cool. The Oval Office dust-up with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy back on Friday continued to dominate the headlines and the talk shows throughout the weekend. Trump went to Palm Beach, right? Zelenskyy went and met with some members of the EU and now says he is ready to sign a mineral rights deal with the U.S. This is Newsmax host Rita Cosby with former National Security Advisor Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer and retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt.
Your thoughts initially, Blaine, with what we were just hearing. First, the reaction coming in. Let's get from what we just heard from Zelenskyy just moments ago, sending out that tweet saying that he is ready to sign the minerals deal. How significant is that, Blaine?
It's very significant. It's the tack I thought he'd take after he kind of had some time after yesterday's disaster to kind of recompose, maybe consult with his own folks. He certainly was consulting with leaders in Europe. And he's going to try to walk it back, but it's not going to be so easy. So President Trump will probably say, well, you know, the terms have changed a little bit here. Why don't we start with your apology and then we'll work our way up from there. And still, President Zelenskyy, while he says he's ready to sign that deal, has not let go of another United States position. He is saying this is a start of security guarantees, but it's not enough. Well, we're not putting F-16 jets up on that border to create the potential for World War III. That's off the table. It's an economic security arrangement, and we're taking a massive risk pre-hostilities ending by signing such a deal. So this is the best he's going to do, but it better start with contrition. And if he can't, there's other folks in Ukraine who certainly can.
You know, what's interesting is what Blaine was just hitting on, the sort of minerals deal and the security issue. That seemed to be a bit of obviously the sticking point a lot, also even the White House, that the whole world got to see. He seems to be separating it a little bit now, Tony. But if this minerals deal comes through, and it looks like, again, hopefully now both sides are ready to sign, the point that President Trump was making, Tony, was that that would give some security, because if America is invested in this minerals deal, which could be very lucrative in terms of paying back America for the billions that we have given to Ukraine, we're not going to want Russia coming in and disrupting business and financial and American interests and American taxpayers' money that could be coming in to help us. So, I mean, when you look at all of that, Tony, don't you think that Zelenskyy needs to sort of see, well, there is security attached to minerals deal? Maybe not all that he wants, but some.
So let's circle back to President Trump's comments earlier this week about the EU being formed to basically harm the United States economically. That's where this is all coming from, Rita. Look at who's saying what and how. Right now, as we speak, Zelenskyy finally caved. Why did Europe put him up to this? As Zach said, every European leader has closed ranks between him because they wanted the mineral resources. They are upset that we're going to get it. That's why they told Zelenskyy to do what he did. This is all about economics, and President Trump is the master. So, and by the way, how many security arrangements do they need? Every European nation has signed an agreement with NATO. I mean, with Ukraine. So why now are you looking to us? We're saying we'll be there. We don't need to actually put that in writing. We're going to invest. We're going to speak with our resources. So, Rita, this was all a canard. His advisors, Zelensky's advisors, some said not to do this. Some, I think, told him to do it. Keir Starmer was here this week prepping for this. Macron was here prepping for this. This is all about the EU trying to once again screw the United States. I'll just say it. That's what this was about. I think Zelenskyy has seen that he was badly advised. To Blaine's point, I'm skeptical. I think Blaine is correct. He should do this. I still don't think he will. Gee, I'd be curious if TMZ's staking out Georgetown, seeing if he goes out and buys a suit and a tie over the weekend. Just say it, because he better show up. He better be in a suit, and he better be ready to apologize if he wants to get this thing back on track.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. He better wear a suit and he better apologize, but he doesn't think that is actually going to happen. The other development in this is that Turkey now wants to get involved as a mediator.
Talking about Turkey saying that they're ready to sort of play this mediator role. How do you see that on this equation, complicating things, like what, trying to take it away from the U.S. and trying to now say that they'll be the leadership position? Is that what Turkey's trying to do, to cause a wedge here?
I think President Trump would applaud Erdogan if he could get something done. Go ahead and try. I mean, this is back to the future. So this takes us back to March of the start of this war 3 years ago. And there in Istanbul was a deal that was about to be signed when Boris Johnson came in and advised Zelenskyy, nope, we've got your back. We'll do whatever it takes. We're going to go fight the Russians with you. And so they walked away. And now here we are again. If Erdogan can get this done, President Trump will applaud. There is no guarantee assured that those rare earths even exist. And so it's not really a big, massive loss on our part. What I see forming up is the potential for a massive new world order shift. Whether Zelenskyy signs or not, the Europeans seem to have this bent for wanting to go to war with Russia. They want to keep the war going, in their own words. They want to just double down, more weapons, more money. They're having a security conference to ratify such things, and they're looking at different ways to get it done. The United States is not going to participate with that. In fact, President Trump realizes that with so well-endowed nuclear weaponized nations, that this only leads to one destructive path, and that fighting the Russians is not nearly a good idea if we can start to work with them and get everybody aligned around their economic interests. But I think we're going to see a lot out of the EU to block this, and it's playing with fire because it could play with our very membership in NATO.
Again, that's retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt on Newsmax with Rita Cosby. And while all of this is happening, Russia continued striking Ukraine's energy structures over the weekend. This is Greg Kelly's take on what happened back on Friday.
That event actually lasted for 50 minutes. It's a long time, and most people haven't bothered to look at, say, the 44 minutes or so where they weren't fighting, but it was still very, very interesting. And Zelenskyy, every step of the way, is looking for trouble. He's not respectful. He is not grateful. And he's needling Trump, right? He's undermining. Trump says something, he comes back and pushes and undermines the whole damn thing. All of that could have waited until they went behind the scenes, to sit at the table over lunch. No, Zelenskyy had to turn on the attitude every chance he got. Well, it wasn't necessary, but he asked for it, and President Trump gave it to him. Now, first, I want to show you just how diplomatic I believe President Trump was throughout their Oval Office meeting.
Your soldiers have been unbelievably brave. We've given them great equipment, but somebody has to use the equipment. They've been unbelievably brave, and we give them great credit. This was supposed to be over very quickly, and here we are 3 years later. So I give tremendous credit to your generals and your soldiers and yourself in the sense that it's been very hard fighting, very tough fighting. They're great fighters. And you have to be very proud of them from that standpoint. But now we want to get it over with. It's enough.
It's enough. That's the part that doesn't look like President Zelenskyy wanted to hear. And the disrespect comes early, and in my opinion, it's quite clear.
Somewhat of an exciting moment, but the really exciting moment is when they stop the shooting and we end up with a deal. And I think we're fairly close to getting that, and an honor to have you. And please, if you'd like to say something.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. President. Thank you for the invitation. And really, I hope that this first document, will be a first step to real security guarantees for Ukraine.
All right. You saw the thank you for the invitation, not for everything else that's been going on, for the invitation. That's a dig. And everything from this point forward is demand after demand after demand. And when President Trump is speaking, if you look at him, half the time he's making faces, rolling his eyes, sighing, trying to butt in when the question isn't directed to him. But from Trump, throughout President Trump, they are words of a wise leader who hates war. Who in the world could really take issue with this sentiment? Take a look.
This to me is one of the most important things because we have tremendous death taking place as we speak, and I don't want to have that. Think of the parents, whether they're in Russia or Ukraine, think of the parents of all these people being killed needlessly.
They came to our territory.
Should have never started. This would have, if I were president, this would have never started.
What an interesting and almost unheard of thought. What about the parents of all of these young men who have been killed? I never heard anybody in the Biden administration talk about the families of those who perished on the Ukrainian side or the Russian side. And of course, President Zelenskyy just jumps in. Well, they came into our territory. We had to kill them, and we had to make sure that they had their parents, bum luck. But it wasn't the time. It wasn't the place.
Greg Kelly is the host of Greg Kelly Reports. That's 9 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. Try and catch it tonight. Greg highlighting Trump's diplomacy and sincerity for wanting to end the killing, right, and end the war. Meanwhile, Lidia Curanaj says, imagine if Kamala was in charge right now.
It's time to put America first, and we're tired of the lies. We're tired of the scams and all of the fraud, with the biggest one of them all, that Joe Biden was competent. This is all his fault, if you think about it. He created all of this. Remember that pale corpse we saw every weekend decaying at the beach? I was thinking about it. The only time I ever truly felt sorry for Joe Biden is when I was sitting in this very anchor chair, and the news broke that he was no longer running for president. And I guarantee this is how it went, that Dr. Jill, she woke him up from his nap. This was in the afternoon on a Sunday, if you remember. And it went like, honey. And he was like, we're not going for ice cream? No, honey. It's so much worse. Nancy and Barack, they staged a coup against you. You're now out of the race, and it couldn't come soon enough. And could you imagine, I was thinking about this as I watched Zelenskyy and Trump and Trump, they take him to task. Could you imagine if it was Kamala Harris there with Zelenskyy? Oh, yes, sir. Ha, ha, ha. Let's be unburdened by billions more of our dollars, Mr. Zelenskyy. And then all of a sudden, you would have seen a transgendered rapper come in, draped in a rainbow flag, twerking for peace. I mean, I think we can all agree that the Democrats almost destroyed our country with Biden and Kamala at the helm. And now a new report revealing that Michael LaRosa, a former White House aide and longtime press secretary for First Lady Jill Biden, confirming what we already knew, that the entire campaign was in on it. They knew Joe Biden was incapacitated from day one. He said, quote, I will use the term gaslighting because that's what they were doing. No, you were doing it too. The campaign, former colleagues, gaslighting, trying to make us think that we're crazy, not to believe our own eyes. We need to arrest every single person involved in this cover-up for endangering our national security. This is why we're in this mess, from Dr. Jill to Kamala to everybody. When the president goes under anesthesia, the public has to be made aware. The VP takes over. But we're talking about 4 years of impairment. And they were going to run him again, if not for that presidential debate.
I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it.
Trump always calling it like it is, like the Ukraine war. This is a tragedy, if you think about it, right? U.S. officials say there's been over 500,000 casualties in Ukraine alone. How many young lives have to be? It's unbelievable. Yet the Biden regime's answer to all of this, to everything, just send more money. Well, you know what? No more.
Those are some pretty entertaining thoughts to think about, right? That's Newsmax host Lidia Curanaj. This will obviously continue to be the big story of the day, though, along with the tariffs, the president's address to the nation tomorrow night, and, of course, Doge.
Welcome back to America Right Now. I'm Tom Basile. There was a time in this country when government service was a privilege, not something that you took for granted. You were willing to serve, and you sacrificed for the sake of the honor of serving the people of the nation. There was a time when it was clear that you had to actually show up to work. You had to demonstrate value. You had to work hard. that no program or individual was indispensable. There was a time when standards were high and expectations were even higher. While there are many good public servants who work in the federal government, many of them are necessary as well. The size, the scope, and the cost of the massive administrative state requires a reset back to a time when expenditures and staff were clearly justified. The days of federal service as a privilege is long gone, sacrificed at the altar of public employee unions who will stop at nothing to gird their power at the expense of the American people, even jeopardizing the nation's financial sustainability. What the Trump administration is doing here with DOGE is critical, as we've discussed, for the restoration of federalism and restoring the Constitution and repatriating resources to the states and to people like you. That's why we need more waste. Tell us more. Tell us every day. We need to hear more from the Trump administration and DOGE about specific examples about what is being found and what is being cut. This was a brilliant move by Caroline Levitt a couple of weeks ago.
$1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either.
It was fantastic. They should do it every day. There should be a press conference every day, just like that. The honeymoon is over for Donald Trump. Even though it was a month, certainly still more of a honeymoon that he got in 2017. But the media and the Democrats are again closing ranks on two principal messages. One, that the Republicans are somehow going to gut Medicaid, which is totally false. And two, that mean old Donald Trump and Elon Musk are destroying lives by cutting budgets and firing federal workers, or that the cuts really aren't as meaningful as they say they are to begin with.
This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce.
I'm working, trying to catch up on things, and then I get that email on top of it. It's very hard to keep your train of thought when you're getting threatened and harassed like that.
This really feels like a betrayal in some sense.
Democrats in the press just don't understand that these workers, unionized, protected, practically unaccountable government workers, are not a sympathetic party in this country anymore. Every year, these folks get cost of living adjustments to their pay. Every year, they receive step or grade increases. Long after their retirement, we still pay for them. Federal employees can retire with 50% of their pay if they meet certain requirements. If an agency is authorized to offer early retirement, they can retire at age 50 with only 20 years of service. Or if they have 25 years of service, they can retire at any age. Now, you do the math. The legacy costs are carried by the taxpayer for decades for federal retirees.
That's Tom Basile, who held several positions in the George W. Bush administration. He's the host of America Right Now, Saturday mornings, 9 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. And according to Tom, the cost of the federal workforce, not including contractors, which is probably billions more, is roughly $317 billion a year. Retire at 50. If you have 20 years in. And by retire, he means, start collecting your pension. My neighbor is a retired federal worker who brags all the time about retiring at 55. He's now a young, active, healthy 77, still collecting. Yesterday, in the nation's capital, figure skating greats like Nancy Kerrigan, Christy Yamaguchi, Brian Boitano, and Peggy Fleming honored the sport's future stars that were killed in the Washington, D.C. plane crash last month.
This event, I hope, will heal and give strength to our skaters in the future.
The investigation into that plane crash with the Black Hawk helicopter is, of course, continuing, and I believe that we'll eventually see some change in protocol at and around Reagan National. And there are still no real answers on the cause of death for actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy, who were found dead in their New Mexico home last week. Investigators are now analyzing data from their cell phones that were retrieved at the home, along with information from Hackman's pacemaker, which they say stopped working 9 days before his body was found. I don't want to use the word suspicious, but still a little bizarre that we're not getting more information or they don't actually know. The Academy Award-winning actor was honored at last night's Oscars.
Our community lost a giant, and I lost a dear friend, Gene Hackman.
That is Morgan Freeman, and hopefully we will learn more within the next few days. For the record, Best Actor went to Adrian Brody for a movie called The Brutalist, and Best Actress went to Mikey Madison for Honora, which also won Best Picture and Best Director. Also in the weekend headlines, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies surging after President Trump posted on Truth Social that he would use Bitcoin and several other cryptos in a new U.S. strategic reserve of cryptocurrency. After last week's big sell-off, Bitcoin was over 93,000 at the time of this recording this morning. Ethereum, also specifically named by Trump, and XRP were also sharply higher, but are pulling back a little bit now. President Trump is scheduled to make comments today from the White House, maybe by the time you listen to this, likely about the cryptocurrency reserve, the pending tariffs, and the Zelenskyy news as well, if he is really going to sign a deal. Stock markets started off the new month well into the green. That is good news. A bunch of major retailers will roll out earnings this week, giving the Feds a better view of consumer sentiment and economic conditions. Then on Friday comes the big monthly jobs report. That's what a lot of investors will be looking forward to this week. And lastly, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who resigned amid a wave of sexual allegations, announced over the weekend that he's running for mayor of New York City.
It is necessary to launch a bold action plan to turn New York City around, to save our city. Did I make mistakes? Some painfully? Definitely. And I believe I learned from them and that I am a better person for it. And I hope to show you that every day.
Cuomo, who became the Democrats' face of COVID, you may recall, sent people with COVID into nursing homes, leading to thousands of deaths. While my governor, Ron DeSantis, for example, who was highly criticized for shutting down nursing homes, which led to saving thousands of lives. I told you last week, Guardian Angels founder and longtime New York City radio host Curtis Sliwa announced that he is again running for mayor of New York City as a Republican. I pray that this gets far enough along to have a debate between Curtis Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo. I cannot tell you how awesome that would be. Even if you can care less about New York, it's something you would want to see. All right, be sure to keep up with all of the news and breaking developments throughout the day on Newsmax N2 and Newsmax.com. It all begins each and every morning with Wake Up America, all the way through Finnerty, Greg Kelly Reports, and The Right Squad with Chris Plant. Expert analysis from people like Judge Napolitano, political analyst Mark Halpern, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer, Brigadier General Blaine Holt, Fred Fleitz, Professor Dershowitz, and many others. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, or try and enjoy the rest of your Monday, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.